Well, howdy, folks. Here it is, Labor Day. Here it is also my birthday. It's actually Labor Day weekend, to be specifically. Well, I'm at here at the AMC, going to not check out a movie, but actually experience a movie for the first time, a classic. Of course, it's been here and gone for the 40th anniversary of E.T. But there's a ton of other movies that summer that came out. And of course, everyone knows E.T.'s my favorite movie, okay? But I've already seen that in the theater. I've already experienced it. However, there's a ton of other movies I have never experienced in the theater. Another one is a classic. Came out that same year. Of course, I didn't experience it because I wasn't born yet. So, for the 40th anniversary, we are going to look at Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Yes, I'm getting my nerd on. Yes, I'm going in to see this. So, let you know what I think. This is a part of a TCM Fathom event thing. So, yeah, so let's go inside. Okay, I'm back at the house, and of course, I've already talked about Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan once before. But this was, you know, a unique experience to actually go see it in the theater. You may be saying, well, Kdog'S, why didn't you go see your favorite movie of all time in the theater, which was E.T.? You know, of course, E.T. came back for the 40th anniversary, and it was shown exclusively in IMAX. To be honest, I felt like I didn't really need to see it. I did get to see it in 2002, and to me that was enough. Who knows, maybe later on, if they have another screening of it, I may do it again. But I just felt like, okay, I've seen E.T., and it's an experience you never forget. And I hadn't yet to see some of the other classic movies play in the movie theater. So tonight was Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Now, to be specific here, I did not know this until after the fact. I had been in the theater, saw the movie, and then went out to get something to eat, and then came back home and realized that the version that they presented tonight was the director's cut, which has about which is about 5 minutes longer than the original theatrical cut. What the differences are, I really could not tell you offhand. I would have to do like a side-by-side comparison, which of course there's not a really good way to do that, but this was a real treat to actually sit in the theater and actually experience the way it was meant to be seen in the theater. And of course, the special effects that ILM did for that film still hold up, even though it was miniatures and some early CGI. It was the first film, one of the first films that to ever use computer-generated imagery as a special effect. The scene of the demonstration of the Genesis device. So, that was a big deal back in that time. So, yeah, but there was other things that, like, I never noticed that, you know, when the ship pulls out of the docking area, there's a little man floating, waving. I never noticed that, but it's Yeah, but he's actually waving. It's very slow, but he's waving to the crew, like "Bon voyage." You know, it's kind of like that situation. Um, it was quite a. It was quite a fun evening to see this film on the big screen, the way it's meant to be presented. Now, of course, this was presented by Turner Classic Movies as part of their TCM Classics on the big screen uh, evening that they do. They do a film about once a month, and so yeah, this particular time they saw the opportunity to show Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan for the 40th anniversary. And the next film will be Poltergeist for its 40th anniversary. Uh, yeah, that may be an interesting one to see in the theater as well, but I don't know. But of course, they treat it just like they do, as if the movie was shown on Turner Classic Movies channel. They have an introduction to the film by Ben Mankiewicz, who's the host of the whole program, and they give a little bit of trivia about the film, and there were some things I didn't really know. Of course, Star Trek: The Motion Picture was a financial success back in 1979. However, it was not necessarily the home run hit that Paramount was looking for. And Paramount still had faith in the Star Trek franchise, so much so that they greenlit this picture. And one of the things that they did, there was a couple things they did that was a controversial move. One of the things was they kicked out Gene Roddenberry from Star Trek II. Gene Roddenberry really didn't have any input to that film. It was all producer Harve Bennett's doing. He hired director Nicholas Meyer, and the thing with Harve Bennett and Nicholas Meyer is that they never watched the Star Trek TV show. Harve Bennett was actually a television producer. Paramount brought him in because that they felt that he could bring in a film on a tighter budget and keep things kind of restricted, and fairly keep things on the cheap, but maintain a high quality product. And I believe that that's what they accomplished with Star Trek II. And how they kept out Gene Roddenberry. Yeah, that was a controversial move. And another thing was this, and keep in mind, this was before the internet. Okay, so there was no such things as the internet leaking a script. There was word of mouth getting leaked out, and one of the word of mouths was that Spock dies. But unfortunately for the people that received that information, the leak only told the beginning portion of the film, in which the whole Kobayashi Maru scenario where the crew is killed, because if you've seen the film, the Kobayashi Maru is a no-win situation. It's all in how the person who's applying themselves to be a captain, how they're going to handle with tragedy and death. So that's the whole point of the Kobayashi Maru. And then you find out that Captain Kirk cheated. But anyhow, Yeah, that was one of the controversial things was they had killed off Spock. And of course, you gotta see the film. If you haven't seen it, you gotta turn this off and find out what actually does happen to, in this film, Captain Spock. What does happen to him? There was some, but I guess when the leaks came out that Spock was getting killed in this film, I guess pretty much everybody involved, including Leonard Nimoy, received death threats at the time. Yeah, I did not know that, and that's, yeah, they, like, some people wrote to him, said that they were going to stab him and shoot it, just horrible things. And Leonard Nimoy, being a professional actor that he is, he said, you know what, I'm going to do this film. Because basically that these people were writing said, don't do this film. Do not do it. If you do, we're going to kill you. He said, I'm not backing down from threats or terrorism. I'm going to do this film. And you know, it's one of the best performances as Spock in the whole Star Trek series. Now, this movie is, again, I think it's the best Star Trek film. Because they kind of found a way to make Star Trek compelling, fun, dramatic, instead of corny and silly in this film. Now, you could say in other films and other TV shows that, yeah, there's still some campiness, there's still some silliness going on here, but they did a. This is probably the top notch of Star Trek films you're ever going to see. Now, going in tonight, I did not read the actual ticket correctly, but it is the version I saw tonight was the director's cut, which adds about 5 minutes to the original version. The original theatrical cut runs 112 minutes, while the director's cut runs 117 minutes. But I think it's still, to this day, a great follow-up film. Actually, I would agree with what some people said, that if you're brand new to Star Trek, watch Wrath of Khan first, then go back and watch everything else. The Star Trek films, I really don't think, except with the exception of 2 and 3, I don't think that you would call them sequels necessarily, because it's like their own story. It's like, okay, Star Trek's 2, 3, and 4 are actually a trilogy. It's called the Genesis trilogy because it's all tied into the Genesis device and whatnot. But then you get into Star Trek 5, Star Trek 6, they're isolated stories. It's just like, okay, here's the 6th film, here's the 5th film, here's the 7th film, here's the film where we hand it off to the next generation crew, here's their next film, the next, and it's just different stories each time. As opposed to Star Trek's 2, 3, and 4, it is a complete trilogy with a story arc. You know, with Star Trek 2, Kirk faces an old rival, and Yeah, Kirk faces an old rival. They discover this thing called the Genesis device. And then you get into Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. You find out that there's other people looking for this Genesis device, and you see what it does. And then you go into Star Trek 4, where the planet Earth is dying because of what they did in Part 3, that they need to travel to the past and pick up humpback whales, bring them back to the future, so that the whales can communicate with this probe that will save planet Earth. But also, what I was going to bring up about Nicholas Meyer and Harv Bennett. Harv Bennett, again, they were not Star Trek fans. They were not Trekkies or anything like that. But they decided to just, hey, let's make an entertaining movie, basically a submarine movie, set it in outer space. And Harv Bennett was the one that was handed this by Paramount to bring in with a tight budget and tight scheduling. So the movie was kind of shot like a TV show. But one of the things that he did that came up with the story was he had actually binge watched, just prior to making Star Trek 2, he had binge watched the entire series. And he stumbled upon an episode called Space Seed, which had Ricardo Montalban play this genetically engineered tyrant by the name of Khan Noonien Singh. And after seeing that episode, Harv Bennett kind of went, what happened to that guy? He didn't appear again in the TV show. What happened to him? So that got the gears turning and said, let's bring him into this film, make him the villain. And oh my gosh, Ricardo Montalban in this film is off the wall. He's a great villain, messing with William Shatner's James T. Kirk. And James T. Kirk to this day says he doesn't know how he did that yell, that scream. The Khan! He has no idea how he did that. He says, I can't do it again. He said it was just at the moment, and you have to see the movie to understand why Kirk does that scream. So, yeah, tonight was Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, the director's cut, to be specific. Yeah, so I know I reviewed this movie before, but I reviewed the theatrical cut. So this is the director's cut. It's a joy to go back. It's a joy to go into a movie theater and watch these classic films presented in the natural way that they're supposed to be shown, which is in a movie theater on a big screen. That film came out in 1982. Home video was brand spanking new. And so not everybody had VCRs at the time. It was still very much, if you want to see a movie, you went to the theater, or you watched it if it came on television. And you were still a ways from being able, I mean, the video cassette player was available at the time, but they were ridiculously expensive. I mean, you're talking 3 figures for a VCR. And you're talking close to $90 for the purchase of a movie. That's why rentals became huge, because you could rent the video for a night for a couple bucks, as opposed to buying the movie. You could buy it, but it was really ridiculously expensive. But I think, I think it's a cool idea that Turner Classic Movies and Fathom Events are doing this, big screen classics and putting the movies back on the big screen. This is the third time I've been able to see one of those. The first one was the Ten Commandments, and I forget, it was for the 50th anniversary of that film. No, the 60th. It was for the 60th anniversary of that film, and it was also for the 60th anniversary of Ben-Hur. I saw that film. And then now here's Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. They always advertise for the next one that's coming up. The next one, for the 40th anniversary of Poltergeist, they're going to show that in the theaters for 3 nights. So if you have a theater that does the Fathom events, go check it out. There's a showing tomorrow and Wednesday, I believe, for if you want to see Star Trek. And they only do it for 3 nights because booking schedules, and of course the movies, they have to they can't show it on a Friday, Saturday, because well, that's when the big Hollywood release, current Hollywood releases, want to make their money. So from me to you, see you later.